Hello, my name is Alexander Gonzalez, and I will be presenting the director's cut for the movie Contagion. In the first scene, we see Dr. Ali Hextile testing the vaccine on herself. In this scene, she injects herself with an experimental vaccine that showed to work on one of the monkey test subjects. The first ethical perspective of this is that she is sacrificing herself in hopes to save a multitude of lives. The second ethical perspective on this is that she's risking the health of her patients and her research for the possibility of saving these lives. And the third ethical perspective on this is that if the vaccine doesn't work, then she would have caused her own father to infect his daughter with this deadly virus. The ethics of this action are varied, as there are many perspectives. According to the first perspective, this action would be completely morally sound because she is making the ultimate sacrifice in hopes to save as many people as she can. In the second perspective, she doesn't consider the risks of her own death and how it would affect the lives of others. And the third perspective, she doesn't consider the fact that this would cause a great emotional toll if she were to contract the virus and if she were to pass away from it on her own father. As a whole, according to her feelings, as a whole, her actions are morally sound because she must be feeling right now that she has an opportunity to save millions of lives, and all it takes is to risk her own. And according to the show, there was a scientist who tested antibiotics against H. pylori, and he was a savior of many people, and she wanted to follow in those footsteps and save as many as she could. So in this sense, her actions were morally and ethically correct. The second scene we will be deconstructing is the scene where Dr. Cheever gives his vaccine dose to his co-worker's son. The first ethical perspective of this is that he is again risking his own life to save another's, specifically a child's. The second perspective is that though he is saving this child's life, Dr. Cheever is in a high position in the medical field as well as in the political field, and his life affects the lives of many others. His death could cause many others to die or be seriously harmed. So, the third perspective on this is that Dr. Cheever used his position to help save his wife at the beginning, and his co-worker, the father of the son who he gave his vaccine to, witnessed this. So it's a possibility that this action was just an action of compensation or to make up for doing what he did. The fourth ethical point is that was it ethical to just give this specific kid his vaccine? Because there are many other children that are at higher risk and more likely to pass away from this than the janitor's son. Overall, this choice was a difficult one to deconstruct due to the fact that Dr. Cheever must be feeling like he's doing his coworker a service and doing all he can to make sure that this child lives. But then again, his actions have alternate consequences that could negatively affect many other people. Though on this scale, I do personally feel that his action was morally and ethically correct and is justified. And I could say that he is even doing his coworker a service, teaching his coworker's son that not necessarily self-sacrifice, but to hold a high perspective of ethics, as explained by Michael Burrow, and teaching these kids to consider others and stand up for what they believe is morally correct, as Dr. Cheever did in this scene. Honorable mentions of ethics within the film. There were many scenes that were ethically and morally loaded, one of them being the care of the epidemiologist when she found out that the vaccines they were given were placebos, the overthrow of the pharmacy, Dr. Cheever and Audrey leaving Chicago before anybody else, and Dr. Sussman continuing to work on the virus even after being shut down. All of these scenes show a lot of moral choices and ethical choices, but none as strong as the ones I've chosen, and both that I've chosen I feel are ethically correct, and they've made the right decisions given the specific circumstances and the emotions that they're going through. I feel like if I was in the same situation, I would have done something very similar. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.